Everyone. Welcome to 23rd lecture of Grid and Cloud Computing. So in this lecture also we'll continue our discussion on parallel and distributed programming paradigm. We'll cover this part. If time permit, we will go for programming support of Google App Engine, that is GAE. So out of these three platforms, one is Google App Engine, another is AWS, that is Amazon Web Service, third is Microsoft Azure. If you want to build your career in cloud domain, so you have to be expert in these three. Out of these three, you have to pick one programming platform, and you have to learn the programming and the associated functionality of the cloud. You have to learn, right? Either you choose Google App Engine or Amazon Web Service or Microsoft Azure. Okay, so there is a language called Swaggle, right? So it is a high-level language which is built on the top of our Google MapReduce framework. You are aware of that Google MapReduce framework, in which we have map function, we have reduce function. So Swaggle is a scripting language that can do parallel data processing. So it is also used in our Google's MapReduce framework. So Sajal can do distributed and fault tolerant processing of very large scale data sets. So if the data set is in the form of GB or now it is in the form of terabyte, in that case you can use Sajal, so that there you can process a very high voluminous of data. And the Sajal was developed by one person, that is Rob Pick. His name is Rob Pick, and it was released as an open source project. Previously, it is completely open source. Anybody can use this source code. Anybody can modify the source code subjected to some license. They can do it, right? So here you can see the overall flow of filtering, aggregating, and collating in Sajal. So in this case, if you see in this diagram, the raw data, you can say, is partitioned and processed locally with a on-site processing script. So you can see here the raw data is, we are partitioning into small parts or small chunks, you can say, so that it can be processed by various, you can say, in the previous case you can say task tracker, or in the previous case you can say data node can process it, right? So here you can see there is a filters are there, that is also set of filters are there. So the local data is filtered to get the necessary information. So filter is used to decide that which data is need to be processed, which data is not required to process, right? Or which data is only for information. That things will be decided by these filters. Then the aggregator, right? The aggregator is used to get the final results based upon the emitted data from the filter, and it performs the sorted results. The same thing which whatever we discussed in the map reduce, like here also we are dividing into small parts, because that we are going to give to map function. And finally, instead of aggregator, we are using reduce function to collect the data and sort the results, right? So here you can say each and every individual data, whatever you have here, it may contain one floating point number, right? You know floating point number in C programming, right? Suppose I want to perform, I want to calculate sum of set of values, right? You are given with a set of values. I will tell you, you calculate their sum, or I will tell you sum of squares of the values, right? These two things you have to calculate in the Sajal platform. So what you can do, you can declare two variables. One is count, another is total. Count is saying how many values you have. Suppose I have given with 5 values, so you can say my count value is 5. And total is sum of these values, right? So count is always an integer, right? The count is not 5.5. Count is either 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, like that. Whatever values I have given input, that is your count. But these values are floating point numbers, right? Whatever value I am giving you, these values are floating point numbers. So if you want to find their sum, then you have to take a float variable, that is total. So these two variables we have declared. in order to perform the programming in Sajal. So let us see how we'll write the code. So the relevant code you can see here, in which our objective is to find the sum of squares. I have given a set of values. You have to count these values and you have to find the total, as well as you have to find the sum of squares. So here you can see our objective is to reach to the sum of square. Here what we did, and the sum of squares is also a float value, right? This is a floating point number, because when you find the square of any number, okay, square of any floating point number, you will get a floating point number. That's why here we are taking the floating point number as a sum of square. So whenever a user is giving input, the input may be a integer or the input may be a floating point number. Like you are writing 10, somebody may write 10.000, right? That's why what we are doing, we are converting the input. In this case, we are converting the input to floating point number, right? And we are maintaining two things. Count value we are increasing. Each time whenever you add a particular value, you are increasing the count value, and whatever value you received here, x value, that you are adding, right? For example, 12.5 is there, 13.5 is there, right? So when 12.5 you have it is there in the x, so the count value is increased to 1 and total value is 12.5. Next, when x value is 13.5, the count value is increased to 2 and total value is found to be 12.5 plus 13.5. Similarly, you can calculate the sum of square. Sum of square is what? You have to first identify x into x, right? X value is 12.5, so you can set 12.5 into 12.5. So whatever value you are coming, that you can set the sum of square, okay, or that is the square. Then you will find the sum of these values, right? So now here in this case, if you see, the aggregators are your count and total and sum of squares, right? And the keyword, whatever you can see in the previous slide also, we are using a keyword that is called as our table, which defines the aggregator type. Okay. So this x is equal to float and input converts your input to the floating point number, as I mentioned. And one can translate this Sajal script into MapReduce program and run them in multiple servers. Means this relevant code I will send to each and every individual server, so that if a very big data set is given to you, you can process it parallelly, right? So the next is there is a Pigletin, is a high level data flow language which is developed by Yahoo, right? Which is, you can see in this table, we are comparing three platforms. One is Sajal platform, another is Pigletin, right? And another is Dryad LINQ. In the last class, we discussed about this thing. So you can see Sajal is provided by Google, Pigletin is provided by Yahoo, and Dryad LINQ or Dryad is provided by your Microsoft, right? They are step by their comparison. Their comparison with respect to a set of characteristics is done in this particular table. Like one of the example I can take, the Sajal is taking a static one, but the Pigletin is taking a dynamic one. Again, Dryad LINQ is taking static one. So based upon your requirement, you can choose one of the high level data analysis language. Dryad LNQ, if you see this Dryad LNQ is building directly on the SQL. That is your structured query language, whatever you have studied in the database. Okay. While if you see other two languages, they are based upon the NoSQL. The recently, if people are using this NoSQL, so these two are pointing to the NoSQL language. You use the NoSQL language, or they are building using NoSQL language, but Dryad LNQ is based upon SQL. And Pigletin, if you see, supports most of this Pigletin, although it is used NQ NoSQL, but it supports to measure SQL construct, like join operation we are using in SQL, right? There is a table is given, a table A is given, and table B is given, and your objective is to make A join B. So such operations are also supported by Pigletin, right? Which is not there in the Sajal platform. Okay, both of them are using NoSQL heritage, but some specific join operation is supported by our pigletin. Okay, there are 4 data types you can see here, which is used in the pigletin. First data type is called atom. So atom is a, you can say it is a singular value or it is a simple atomic value. If you want to declare a value as an atom, it looks like this one. Suppose I want to define cloud as an atom. So I can write cloud in a single quote. So it is a atom. Suppose I want to declare tuple data type. So what I will do, tuple means it consists of more than one things, right? Okay, more than one things. So you can see there is a atom cloud, there is a atom grid. So they are present in a single tuple, right? That's why it is saying sequence of fields of any pigletin type. Similarly, bag is another data type in which you have multiple tuples. You can see here, there is a tuple here, cloud grids. There is another tuple, cloud, then IaaS PaaS. So you know that cloud provides various services like IaaS and PaaS here. So here you can see a bag is a collection of tuples, right? With each member, either cloud or grid, each member of the bag allowed a different schema. Here you can, the schema used in this tuple and schema used in this tuple is different, right? Third one is the map. So map is a collection of data items associated with a set of keys. The keys are the bag of atomic data. So you can see the capability of each and data type with respect to starting from atom to map is increasing. Like here you can see Microsoft is providing 2 things, let's say Microsoft Windows or Microsoft Azure. So that mapping you can represent here. Or you can say Red Hat Linux, we say, right? Linux, whatever we are using, it is provided by Red Hat. So that can be represented in the form of map. So if you want to learn pigletin, you have to rely on these 4 data types and a couple of operations given in this slide. Like load operation, if you want to read the data, then you will use load operation. Or if you have studied Microsoft microprocessor, so you may have seen some of the commands like store is used to write, right? Similarly, if you can say join operation is used to integrate 2 or more inputs, right? Split is dividing the data into 2 or more sets. Union is merging 2 or more data sets. So these are the couple of operations that can be possible by the help of piglet, possible that is available in the pigletin high level language. Now, if you want to read the data, what you will do? Suppose one person want to read data, right? First, we need to read the data. Then only we can process the data or we can modify the data. If you want to read the data, then you can see you have to write like this: queries is equal to load file with data.txt, the file in which you want to read the data. That file name you have to mention. Using my UDF is there is a 3 attributes. One is user ID, another is query string, another is timestamp, right? So if you see here, in this case, the load command, this load command returns a handle to the bag queries. So I told you in the load, we are using load for the read command, right? For reading a particular files. So this command handle a bag queries, and this my UDF is an optional custom reader, okay? And which is an example of, you can say, user defined function like our structure and union. And this else syntax specifying defines the schema of tuples. We are interested in 3 tuples. One is user ID, query string, another is timestamp. So this line you have to write to read the data, okay, if you want to use pigletin language. Similarly, in order to process the data, you have to write expand underscore queries equal to for each queries generate user ID, expand query UDF and query string. So here if you see this for each runs over all the tuples in the bag. In the bag, if you see here, the idea will be clear. Bag, here you can see. So here if you want to apply this, if you want to process this thing, right? So for each runs over all tuples, tuple 1, tuple 2, tuple 3 like this in the bag. So now, okay. So one could use this filter. There is a filter operation also. If you want to apply filter, suppose I want to, yes, suppose I want to specify a particular attribute. For example, I am interested. If user ID is equal to Alice, then only it will extract the thing. If user ID is not equal to Alice, then I am not requiring that tuple. So you can write filter queries by user ID not equal to Alice. So if user ID is not equal to Alice, you have to remove it, right? If user ID is equal to Alice, then only you are going to accept it. So here you can see this pigletin. If you compare pigletin with SQL, as I already mentioned, so the equivalent of join is nothing but co-group. Join operation you are using in SQL, the same thing is your present in the pigletin, that is co group. So you can see here group data is equal to co group, here we have used. So if you use this one here in the co group, results by query string, revenue by the query string. So here the results and revenue are nothing but the bag of tuples that we have discussed, that is clouds is there or grades is there, right? So tuple 1, tuple 2, tuple 3, like this. In the specific syntax of the results, you can see you are using query string, URL and position. Revenue is nothing but query string, add slot and amount. So this core group is produce a tuple consisting of 3 fields. Here you can see 3 fields are there in the results and revenue. So core groups also produce a tuples with 3 fields, right? So these 3 fields you may take in order to apply the join operation. Suppose I want to join result with revenue. So I need to specify the fields so that we can perform the join operation. Now let us see what are the different categories. So if you want to map application to a parallel distributed system, so you can see there are 6 categories are there. 5 categories are there for a common operation or a normal computing, but 6th category is specifically for the data intensive computing, right? You have studied in computer organization, if you remember, we have studied some architecture called SISD, another is SIMD, another is MISD, okay, another is MIMD. If you remember, this is called a single instruction, single data stream, single instruction, multiple data stream, multiple instruction, single data stream, multiple instruction, multiple data stream. So out of these 6 categories, if you see category 1, if you go, was popular 20 years ago, right? But no longer significant today. And it runs, if you go for category 1 runs your single instruction, multiple data machine. Single instruction, but you have multiple data stream. For that, if you want to go for such programming, you can go for SIMD or you can select category 1. But if you go for category 2, is much more important and correspond to your SPMD. SPMD means there is a single program and multiple data. Like you have written a Sajal script and you are given to multiple servers. Multiple servers are taking the same program, but they are taking different data. I will give a very simple program to each and every person, but I will give different data to process it. So for that, your MIMD machine is used, right? That is multiple instruction and multiple data. So category 1 is specially used for the regular problem, but category 2 is used for the dynamic irregular cases. There you can use, for example, I want to solve the partial differential equation in mathematics or particle dynamics, then you can proceed through the category 2. Similarly, if you go for category 3 describes the concurrent threads in a modern operating system and event-driven simulation, like our computer game we are playing. Graph algorithms, if you want to run in the modern operating system like Windows and Ubuntu, okay, there you can select category 3. Next is, you can see the complete chart here. First one is synchronous, second one is loosely synchronous, third one is synchronous, fourth one is pleasingly parallel, fifth one is meta problem, sixth one is map reduce. So these are the various classes and they are applicable based upon the categories of problem. Similarly, if you go for category 4, it is the simplest algorithmically, with disconnected parallel component. Disconnected parallel component means it is a distributed system. Parallelism is there, but they are located in all over the world, okay, in various locations. So you can see our grid and cloud are coming under our category number 4. Similarly, category 5 refers to the coarse-grained linkage of different atomic problem. Right? Similarly, category 6 is having 3 subcategories. First one is map only. If you use this map only in the category 6, then you have to go through this category 4. You have to use the disconnected parallel components. Second category is your classic map reduce with file to file operation. Third one is your extended map reduce version. So these 3 categories are supported by your category 6. So if you see in the overall sense, category 6 is using your category 2 and 4 as a subset of is the subset of categories, right? So you can see the map function belongs to category 4. Similarly, other categories are belongs to your category 2. And this category, as I mentioned, this is specifically used for your data intensive computing, where you have a voluminous of data where you are focusing on the communication rather than the computing. Okay, in that case, you can apply category number 6. Okay, so here you can see the comparison, the overall comparison, the operations supported. First, I told you there is a map only. So if you go for the map only function, you are giving input and you have only map function. You don't have reduce function. You have map function, you are processing your input through the map function and getting the output. Right? Similarly, the second one is your classic map reduce, in which you have map function and you have reduce function. So inputs you are providing to the map function, then map function is giving the data to the reduce function and get the output. Right? Then in iterative map reduce, what happens? You are applying the map function followed by your reduce function, and these steps will be repeated until unless your work is over. You can apply. This process is repeated. Especially in the data mining applications or linear algebra, we are going for iterative map reduce. Similarly, if you go for loosely synchronous, here we are using MPI, that is message passing interface. Okay, MPI programming. You can see here a particular attribute, you can say a row is connected circular way, right? For example, you can see there is a S from this row to the end of this row, and here also you can see from the starting of the column to the ending of the column. So here you can apply many scientific application utilizing wide variety of communication construct, including local instructions. Local interactions are also provided by this. This is called as loosely synchronous, not complete synchronous. You can see this is belongs to your category number 2, where it is loosely synchronous. Such architecture is present here, right? Where we are focusing on MPI. Okay, so this is all about our parallel distributed programming paradigm. Next, we will discuss the programming support in the first cloud service provider, that is Google, that is providing Google App Engine. So before that, let me take a poll. All of you, please answer this question. Sajwal is a Des language. You have last 15 seconds. Okay, we stop the poll. What is the correct answer?
High level language, sir.
It is a high level language, right? So if anybody is interested, you can explore that what kind of programs you can write. I have given one example, but you have to practice other language, other examples. So if you want to perform programming in the first cloud, that is Google, provided by Google, that is Google App Engine. So here you can see, I will tell you about some of the key features provided by GAE programming model. So GAE programming model supports two languages. You have to comfortable in two languages. One is Java and the recent one, that is Python. So what are the key features provided by this GAE programming model? So let us see. Okay, I'll tell you about this thing. So these two languages are supported in the GAE programming model. So a client environment that includes Eclipse plugin. So if you want to write, if you want to build a particular Java project, you can use NetBeans or you can use Eclipse. So here it is saying the client environment that includes an Eclipse plugin. Okay, instead of the NetBeans, you can use Eclipse. For Java, allows you to debug your GAE code, whatever code you have written in the Google App Engine in your local machine. The requirement is that you should have Eclipse for plugin, right? And the data store, if you see, that is a schema-less properties. In database, you have seen there is a specific schema. But as it is using NoSQL data management system, so it is supporting your schema-less properties. And here, if you can see, the size is of the entries. Okay, the database management for entries, you can see the size is 1 MB. Okay, and they are following your schema-less properties. And the data stored is strongly consistent and uses optimistic concurrency control. In order to, as the data is residing in various places, so you have to ensure that these data should be consistent. And an update of an entry, if you want to update a particular entry, suppose you are performing a particular transaction in which you want to update a particular thing, so that will be retried a fixed number of times, right? For example, you are performing a transaction, the network is slow. So what happens? It is repeated for multiple times. Okay. If it is failed after that, then what is going to do? So before that's why it is saying it is retried a fixed number of times if other processes are trying to update the same entry. So if you are using the same variable, okay, or the same accounts, if you go for a banking term, and multiple people are applying some operation in that account, so it is applying that operation to a fixed number of times, right? So GAE application can assign entities to group when the entities are created. They are performing various groups to assign the entity so that you can easily locate it. And the performance of the data store can be enhanced by in-memory caching using the memcache, this memcache, which can also be used independently of the data store, right? So here you can see the programming environment of Google App Engine. So in which you are using memcache here. There is a blob store. I will tell you about this thing, and Google Data API. So it is providing various application, right? We are using Google Drive, we are using Google Map, right? We are using the mail services, we are using images, many things are there, right? And entire thing is built using two languages. One is your Python, another is your Java, right? That is required. And you can connect, if you are building a private cloud, it may be available in your intranet, right? Available in your intranet. And if you need more resources, it will connect you with the internet also. That's why you can see there is a two term internet, intranet here. Secure internet is there. It is providing a tunnel service in which you can connect the tunnel server through internet. So this blob store, if you see this blob store, Google added it to store large files as its size limit to 2 GB. 2 GB in each and every entity you can go up to the limit of 2 GB. And Google SDC, that is your secure data connection, can tunnel through the internet and link your intranet to an external GAE application. If you want to invoke an external GAE application, this tunnel will work. And the URL fetch operations provide the ability for applications to fetch resources and communicate with other hosts over the internet. And there are many services are provided, like sending emails is provided by Google App Engine, or Google Map you are using, Google Site we are using to build our own site, Google Groups is there, Google Calendar, Google Docs are the very famous YouTube. Such applications are provided by your Google App Engine. And GAE provides the ability to manipulate the image data. Suppose you are to process an image processing application in GAE. So the operation related to the images, like resizing the image or rotating the image to 90 degree, 180 degree, 270 degree or 360 degree, or flip the image or crop the image, or if you want to enhance the image, such type of facilities are also provided, which is nothing but our image processing applications you can do in GAE. And GAE represents everything in the form of cron jobs. So it may be daily basis or it may be hourly basis, and it is handled by your cron service. A GAE application is configured to consume resources up to a certain limits and quota. Like Gmail is providing you 15 GB, right? So up to 15 GB of SS, it is free. But once you exceed this one, then the free tier is over, then you have to pay for the service. So up to certain limit, this is free. And okay, so there are several assumptions. If you go for Google file system, okay, which is used here, so there are several assumptions concerning to our Google file system. Like I mentioned, in Google file system, if a hardware is failed, so this is not an exception, because we are dealing with numerous servers, right, or numerous hardware components. So if there is a failure happen, so we call it it is a normal one, it is not an exception one. And GFS typically will hold a large number of huge files. Each and every file you can say 100 MB or more, or it can support the data up to some GB or TB. And in each and every file size, if you see the data block size, the data block size is 64 MB. But if you go to the previous systems, they are using only 4 KB. So Google has chosen its file block data block size to 64 MB instead of the 4 KB, which is generally used in the traditional file system, right? And if you see the GFS architecture, in the GFS architecture, you have a single master. Like we have seen, there is a single job tracker, or there is a single name node, and there is multiple task tracker or multiple name node. Similarly, in this case, there is a single master in the whole cluster, and it stores the metadata. Other nodes are cooperating with single master in order to store the data in the Google file system. So this is the complete architecture. You can see there is a chunk servers are there, right? There are many chunk servers are there, but there is only one master. Okay, master coordinates this chunk server, and chunk servers cooperates with the master in order to process the things in the Google file system. So here you can see in this blue diagram, we are showing two things. One is the data messages, another is control messages. You can see this is a control messages, right? This arrow represent the control message, and other arrows are represent your first this is your data message, and other arrows are representing your control message. So same architecture is there, like it is representing everything in a hierarchical form. One node to represent a particular directory, like foo/bar. Okay, in order to access the file from a particular directory. Okay, so the master periodically communicate with the chunk server. If you assign some work to the chunk server, you have to periodically monitor whether they are working or not, right? Communicates with the chunk server. And once the chunk server complete their instructions that are given to the chunk server, they can return the result to the master. That's why here we have a load balancing policy, such that we will know that none of the chunk server is overloaded, or none of the chunk server is underloaded, right? So the single GFS master, you can see there is a single GFS master. For example, assume that this single master is failed. Okay, if the single master is failed, then what happens? The entire system is collapsed. So this is the main demerits of the Google file system. Okay, that the main potential weakness of the GFS is that there is a single master, that is leads to single point failure, which leads to your performance bottleneck. Okay, So what you can do, you can go for a backup master also. If you go for a backup master, then this problem can be solved. And if you concentrate on a single master, the single master can hold or can handle or can process a cluster of more than 1000 nodes. Means if you have 1000 chunk servers, a single master can easily handle these many nodes. So how the processing is done? So basically we call it a data mutation. Data mutation means your writing operation or append operation in Google file system. So it is following a 7-step process. Okay. And this process, the main goal of this particular process is to minimize the involvement of the master. Repeatedly, if you refer to the master, then master will be overloaded. That's why in order to minimize the involvement of the master, this 7-step process is there. What we are doing in the 7-step process, first step, in the first step, the client asks the master which chunk server holds the current lead. Okay, so suppose whatever data you require, you can ask the master where you can get the data. That is called your current lead. Okay, and location of the replica also will ask by the client. Then what will do? Master in the second step replies with the identity of the primary as well as the location of the secondary or replicas. Master will tell you which one is your primary, which one is your replica. So here you can see there is 2 secondary replica and there is a primary replica. Then in the step 3, what master is doing, what the client is doing, client pushes the data to all the replicas, including primary replica and secondary replica. It is pushing the data to these replicas. So in order to store it or in order to process it, right? Then in the step 4, client is requesting a write request to the primary, not to the secondary. It is requesting to the primary. Then once the request is reached to the primary will propagate that request to all the secondary. So that write request will be provided by primary to the secondary. Secondary will perform the operation. The secondaries will reply to the primary once their work is over. That is the 6th step. So primary asks the secondary replicas to perform a particular thing. Then the results will be returned to the primary replica. Once the result is collected by the primary replica is going to reply to your client in the 7th step, right? Or if any error is encountered in the communication of primary to secondary or secondary to primary, such cases will be reported to the client. So this Google file system was designed for high fault tolerance. So you can see the same data is available in multiple replicas. If a particular replica is failed, like there is 3 copies are there. So if 2 is crashed, 2 of them is crashed, still the data can be processed or still the data can be retrieved, right? And here you can see the master and chunk servers can be restarted in a very few seconds if you are having some failure. So within a fraction of second, you can retrieve the system with a fast recover capability, right? That's why Google file system is providing a better way, and you can use multiple replicas in order to support the fault tolerance. The next one is there is a big table. Okay, so big table is nothing but in an alternative of your, you can say, database system, or it is a database system. It was designed to provide a service for storing and retrieving structured data and semi-structured data. Structured data means your Microsoft Excel file, you can say it is completely structured. Semi-structured means you can say your XML data is semi-structured, right? So such type of data can be stored or retrieved from the big table, right? Like you are aware of our GPS system. In your mobile also you have a GPS system. Suppose you want to find a particular place, you are using Google Map or you are using Google Earth software. So that is supported by this big table. So big table as application includes your Google Earth software, right? So you can see in Google Earth software you have a couple of web pages, or you are, whenever you are visiting a particular website, okay, whenever you are referring to a particular website and you are clicking somewhere, so you are moving from one page to another page. So if you see, each URL has an average page size of about 20 KB per version. You may have multiple versions of each and every web page as well, right? So if you want to design and implement the thing, this big table for your application, so you have following goals. The first one is the application want asynchronous process. It is not a synchronous process, it is asynchronous process to be continuously update different pieces of data and want access to the most recent data at all times. Even if you have a multiple versions, but you want to access one latest version, right? Like in a software, there are several releases are there, version 1.1, version 1.2, 1.3, but we are relying on the final version, the most current version. The database need to support very high read write rates, and the scale might be million of operations per second. So you have to enable the database in such a manner that so you can perform million of operations per second. That is supported by your big table. Similarly, big table system is scalable, so in which you can deal with thousands of servers, you can deal with terabytes of memory data, you can deal with petabytes of disk based data, and you can perform millions of reads and writes per second, and you can perform the scale very efficiently in the big table big table platform, right? So these many facilities are provided by big table. And big table use various building blocks. First one is your Google file system. We are using this Google file system for storing the persistent data. You have a scheduler. What scheduler is doing? It is scheduling the jobs involved in the big table. Okay, you have to divide the work, and you have to, this scheduler will tell where to process the things, right? You have log services. Log services also provides who is the master. Suppose master is failed. If a master is failed, so out of all the chunk server, one election will be performed, right? Suppose your class representative is absent, so out of all the students, we have to choose one student as your class representative. So such type of facility and location bootstrapping is provided by the log service, and we are using MapReduce, which is used to read and write the data from or to big table. So the next one is big table data model used in the mass media. So here you can see in this figure, we are accessing a web page, that is www.cnn.com. So this is a web table. So web table stores the data about a set of web pages, right? Each web page can be accessed by a URL, right? For example, whenever you are accessing this web page, then you are getting www.cnn.com/home. Whenever you are clicking contact our link, you are going to contact our page. So there are several URLs, several web pages are there that can be accessed to the URL, and the URL is considered the row index. Okay, the URL is considered the row index, and columns. So you can see here we are accessing the www.cnn.com, and here there are several anchors are there like cnnsi.com, okay, or myloop.ca. So the column provides different data related to a corresponding URL. So whenever you are clicking somewhere, you are going to another web page. And this map is indexed by your row key, that is your string, or the column key, that is also a string, and the timestamp, at what time you are accessing a particular web page. That is a 64-bit integer that maps a string to the cell content. So you are mapping a row with the column. Now, if you see here in this figure, the big table master manages and stores the metadata of big table system. Here you can see there is a client, big table client is invoking your big table or multiple clients. Okay, so this big table client is having the library, big table library, by which this client programming library, it can communicate with your master and can communicate with multiple servers, right? Big, like we call it a tablet servers, right? One is a master server, another is here this tablet server. So this is the complete data model where you can use where we are using the Google file system, log services, or as I mentioned in the previous slide, so that is scheduler, MapReduce, everything is supported by this big table system. Here you can see that if anybody will ask how to locate a particular big table data starting from the file stored in the Chubby, right? So in the Chubby file, you can see it is a 3-level system. So this Chubby file is given to the root tablet, and root tablet is connected to multiple tablets. Like in the previous slide also you have seen, master is connected to various tablets. So in the first level, you have a file stored in the Chubby, right? So based upon the location or based upon the information, so the metadata contains the location of a set of user tablets, and these tablets is again connected to a set of user table. So everything is maintained in the form of a hierarchy. We are maintaining a proper hierarchy in order to access the data using our big table. So you can see this Chubby application. Okay, here you can see Chubby is intended to provide a coarse-grained locking service. Files stored in the Chubby are quite small compared to the Google file system. GFS is dealing with the GB of data, but Chubby is not dealing with that much data. So here, if you see a particular Chubby cell, okay, is consist of your 5 servers. Okay, there are 5 servers are there. Each Chubby cell has a 5 servers inside, and each server in the cell has the same file system namespace. The namespace, system namespace in each and every server is same. And whenever a client want to access to this Chubby cells, okay, it is using the Chubby library. Okay, so clients use this Chubby library to talk to the server cells. Okay, and they are binding by the remote procedure call, and the servers runs one of the specific type of protocol that we call as a PEX protocol. Okay, this protocol is used by these servers in order to process the client works or client applications is processed by these servers using this PEX protocol. Okay, so this is the complete structure of your Google Chubby for distributed logs.